Okay guys, thank you for watching this channel. Thank you for the great comments. It really motivates me to get back onto this channel and bring up and share with you my knowledge. So I have my notes here on my phone, so if I look at my phone, that's what I'm doing. Alright, so I have so many tips and tricks on this that I'm probably going to have to divide it into two videos. But first of all, I just threw everything I knew into the notepad, and I'm going to talk to you about interviews, coding interviews. And I'm not going to talk about technical. This is not technical at all. This is the soft skills, they call them soft skills, that surround the technical interview. Things you need to do to get the job. And I'm talking about programming jobs, technical jobs, or any jobs really. This would work for any job, but not technical though. I will do technical videos. I will do .NET, how to, what you need to know to get through a technical interview. So anyway, but that's not what this is. Alright. I promise you though, you will be a better interviewer after you watch this video. I promise you. Alright, so these are things that I've learned and developed, and a lot of these things, okay, so a lot of these things I shouldn't even have to tell you. If I say I shouldn't even have to tell you this, and you didn't know it, man, you got to reevaluate your interviewing skills, okay? So usually, it depends on what kind of job you're going for. A lot of times you can direct hire into a company. If there's a company you like, you can apply directly, right? And so you send your resume into them. But more and more in what I've seen are companies hire a contracting firm that hire people. It's a middleman. It's almost, I don't know why they do it. It's almost completely useless, but they hire the middleman, and oftentimes you will apply to the middleman and they will help you find a job. So the middleman is a company, and they're a placement agency, and sometimes they do more than just tech. You know, they might do .NET, but they also might do, who knows what they do, nurses and healthcare, who knows. But anyway, for the most part, you will most likely be applying through a contracting agency. And a lot of the jobs, the best jobs I've had were this thing they call contract to hire, where a company wants to hire somebody, but they want to take them on as contract for like 3 months to kind of get to know them and then bring them on and be a full-time. I almost think it's kind of like a test. It's like a test thing. It's actually not a bad idea, because I also want to test them. So after 3 months, as a contractor, I kind of get to choose also. Do I want to stay there and become full-time, or did I really like it that much, okay? And the second thing about contract to hire is I've never been afraid, ever, of contract to hire. I am fully confident in myself, as you should be, about getting a job and doing a good job for 3 months or 4 months or whatever and getting hired. You should be very confident in yourself. That's why I'm never worried. Oftentimes they'll ask me, do you want to do contract to hire? Like, or, you know, because they don't do direct hire. Like, I don't care. I don't care. I'm going to do a good job, and I'm going to decide whether I work there or not. That's how confident I am. I'm going to decide. Okay. So anyway, my point is, don't be afraid of contract to hire. All right. So I keep my notes on my phone. So, all right, what you usually do though is you'll be contacted by recruiters. I get lots and lots of emails from recruiters, and I've gone through them many times. Some of them are good, some of them not so good. So you send your resume into the contractor, and then they'll forward it on to the company. And usually they have a pretty good relationship with the company. They know the managers, they know who it is, and you'll talk to them. You'll talk to your contracting agency, but you won't talk to the company. Okay, and they will kind of help you, tell you what's in your interview. So they're really pretty good at telling you what's in the interviews, because they have other people doing the same interviews, right? They might have 4 or 5 people or more interviewing for the same job you are, and they will get information back and relay it to you. They will tell you, and most often it's a 2 or 3 step process. So beyond the resume, so you send the resume, they send it to the company looks at it, and if you've got good experience and all, most likely they'll want to see you. I've got a pretty good success rate of sending my resume in and getting an interview. By the way, the point of a resume, I learned this in college, by the way, is to get an interview. That's the point of it. So the interview is what you want. You want to get your foot in the door, then you can talk your way through the rest of it, okay? So, great resume will get you in. And of course, I mean, I shouldn't have to tell you, no spelling errors on your resume. It should be detailed. It should have lots of keywords on it. Whatever you do, .NET, HTML, CSS, SQL Server, all those keywords are how they find you and they want you, okay? And you shouldn't, while we're talking about resumes, don't ever lie on your resume. Don't ever say you've been somewhere you haven't, or you know something you don't. There's no way on earth you want to work somewhere and pretend like you know something. That's not going to be good for anybody, because eventually you're going to have to know what you said you knew, and they're going to turn to you and be like, you said you knew that, man. What's going on? Never, ever say you know something. You can say you're familiar with it, you've been exposed to it, but don't ever put something on your resume that's not there. And we'll circle around to this, but most often they'll do a background check, they'll do a drug test on you, and they'll do a work history. In some cases, they'll even go and look up your college or your credit, whatever it is, your technical school, whatever. They'll go look it up and make sure you actually went there. It doesn't happen often, but usually the bigger the company, the more they dig into your past, okay? So assume you're going to be drug tested, okay? Just assume it. If you're doing drugs, don't, because they'll find them and you won't get the job at all. If you've got something in your background, that's bad. That's real bad. Not all. The good news is, if you got something in your background, not all companies do a background check. I work for contracting. The small company, they didn't do any background check. Nothing. It was just, we like you, you're hired. The very next company, they wanted 7 years work history. They wanted a drug test. They wanted a background check. They even said they might credit check. They took my license. And you know, I hate giving up this information. I can't stand it. I'm a private person, right? But there's nothing you can do. You either do it or you don't work there. I mean, that's just the way it is. I hate to say it, but you got to make a choice on that. Let's see. So most often in the process, you'll send your resume in. They'll say they want to talk to you. So the first person this person is going to call you is maybe from their company, the company you want to go to. They're going to call you, and the HR person is going to just kind of ask you some friendly questions just to make sure you're not insane, okay? Also, while we're at it, the contracting agency almost always wants to meet you in person, because if you meet over the internet, they want to make sure you're not weird, okay? So I heard someone say once, we just want to make sure you don't have two heads. He said that, like, we don't make sure you have just one head and not two heads, you know, they just want to make sure you're not really gross and weird, okay? So, so you meet with your contracting agency, they send your resume, the company likes you, the HR person calls you, okay? The HR person doesn't know anything about the job, okay? You're going to talk to this person, and they're just kind of screening you out to make sure you're not a real weirdo. So this is going to be a friendly, happy, are you sure you want to work here? This is what the hours are like. They'll always say, I can't tell you any details about the job. You'll have to do that in the technical interview with the manager that you'll be working for. So this is kind of an easy process to get through. Okay, after you get through that, that part's easy, because it's usually just don't be weird, you know? So you go and eventually the manager that you'll be working for, or maybe multiple managers, sometimes when you're interviewing, many managers will want a programmer. And so 3 or 4 of them will interview you, and they'll decide what team maybe you go on. So here's a very important point. Don't ever take the interview process too seriously, because the insides of these big companies, they're very confusing. They're very dynamic. These people are very busy sometimes. Sometimes they get a stack of resumes this big. I'll tell you a story. I started working for this company, and it was chaotic, and they made me project manager. I didn't even ask for it. They just said, the guy quit, and they said, you're project, or the team leader. And one day they laid a bunch of resumes on my desk, but I was too busy to even look at them. So I put them aside, and I did, programming. And then I finally, dude, you need to hire somebody. You need some help. So I looked at him. I pulled the resume up, and I said, the guy was working there that worked for the contracting agency. I said, well, what about this guy? He goes, nope, he's gone. He already got hired. Okay. All right, this looks good. What about, nope, he's gone. He's already been hired. I waited too long. I waited a week. All of them were gone. They were already gone. I had to get more resumes in. That's how fast they were going at that time. So anyway, another story. I was working for a company, and they said, okay, so I was working for another company, and I knew we were interviewing people. Not sure why, but I knew we were. And one of my friends, he was like, I got an interview tonight. I'm going to interview somebody to come work for us, okay? So he interviews him, and the very next day, there was a hiring freeze. So that poor guy had to interview, and he thought he might get the job. And at the end of the day, there was no job because the very next day they hire freeze because weird things happen in these companies. There's so many different levels and so many different people. So my point is, don't ever get too discouraged. Don't ever, like some companies I've interviewed with, and you never hear from them again. They don't even say no. They don't say yes. They don't say no. They don't say anything. They probably got busy and took your resume and threw it in the trash, to be honest with you. The good news is there's a lot of companies, and they don't always act like that, okay? So we've talked a lot about getting your first interview, and this after you go through the HR person. The second thing is sometimes this is the harder part, because this is where you're going to talk to the people that you work with, and this is where it might be a technical screen. Sometimes they do the technical screen. Oh, the screen means they're trying to screen bad people out, by the way. So they'll call you, and you'll interview over the phone. And if you don't answer well enough, you won't even go into the company. I've done both. I've failed those. I've succeeded in those. I've had terrible ones. I've had great ones. Usually, though, I'm not worried because I can tell during the interview sometimes I don't even want to work there. The way they ask questions and the way they act in the interview, you think, man, I'm not so sure I want to work here. These people are not so, they're kind of mean, you know? And while I'm thinking of it, sometimes you're in an interview and there's like a person there that's like real jerky. You know, they're like, well, why'd you quit? Why'd you leave there? And they'll just keep asking these harsh questions, and you start thinking, man, I don't know if I want to work with that guy. Guess what? Your intuition was right. You don't want to work with that guy. I've gotten the job before, and my intuition about the people there, sometimes they were great, sometimes they weren't. My intuition was right almost every time. If you get this feeling, when you're there, I like these people. They're nice, they're easy to work with, they'll work with me, you know. Or this guy's harsh, all he cares about is the time clock. He doesn't care about the actual work. You get this feeling, you know what I mean? So that feeling will tell you a lot. It really will. It's amazing. All right, so moving on. So sometimes the companies are super, super technical. They will fire question after question after question, like straight from the book, right? Well, let's see. What's a fat URL? If you have an Ahref, and you know they'll ask you these memorization questions, and some of them are ridiculous, like because you could just go look it up, right? And I can get through those now with my experience. I can get through those because usually they ask semi-sane questions, but sometimes they will nail you technically. And it depends on the position, it depends on the company, it depends on the people. Sometimes, and more often, a better company will ask you to tell about your experience. And that's where you can talk and say, you can mention the technical things you've done. Oh, I had to connect to a SQL server, and I had to use a connection, a SQL connection, a data reader. I had to create a COM object. I had to create a DLL. I had to create an XML. You can talk. When you can talk, it's a lot easier and you can succeed. The best companies do a mix of that. They'll ask you technical questions that you should know anyway, but they'll also let you talk. It's not straight from the book, and it's not straight no questions at all. That's kind of a mix. That's the best thing to do. Some companies I've heard of this, I've never done it before. Some companies will ask you to code for them. And I'm not afraid of that because most coding will be pretty simple, you know, the things you do in front of them, and I've done it a lot, so I'm not afraid of that, but I haven't seen that yet. Sometimes they'll ask you an oddball question, like one time they asked me, how come there are no square manhole covers? And it's a stupid question, but the answer is because if it was round, it would fall down into the manhole. Okay, sometimes they ask you these crazy questions, just be ready for that. Let's see. Okay, so what I was saying was don't take any interview too seriously. Because as a programmer, you have a lot of options, especially if you're good and experienced. You miss this job, you'll get the next one. Don't worry about it. The job you miss, you may have hated anyway, right? Some of the job, I made this I made this quote. I said, some of the worst jobs I've ever had are the ones I've been hired for. Think about that. The worst jobs I've ever had are the ones where I got hired. I almost wish they hadn't hired me. After like a month, I'm like, man, I hate it here. This place stinks. And this is a long time ago. You know, I love where I work right now. Just gonna say, in case any of my coworkers see this, I love where I work right now. But I've had a job where, like, man, I wish I hadn't got hired. So if you don't get the job, it's not the end of the world, because you may not have wanted a job anyway. It may have sucked. You may have been saved, right? Sometimes you think it's a great job, but it's not. So just relax. If you don't get it, there's another rule. There's another rule. The more you want a job, the least likely you are to get it. Here's what I mean. So I'll find a job or a company or something. I really want to work there. I really do. I think it sounds great. It's close to home. It pays well. I heard good things about it. And I'm like, man, the more I like it, the more it seems like those are the ones that I don't get. It just does. I don't know how it works, but the ones I don't really want, the jobs I'm like, I guess. I mean, it's far away and they're working with this thing I don't know. Those are the ones you get. I know it's weird, but okay, and I just want to throw this in there. We're not talking about working at the Googles and the Amazons. That's a whole different beast. Those companies are special. Those companies have different processes. I'm talking about your average corporation in the United States, in the Midwest especially. I should have said that from the beginning, but that's what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about Google. They have a different process. I don't know how it is. It's pretty weird. You'd have to research before you worked at a Google. I've heard of people that apply and apply and apply and apply, and eventually they get in, right? You like almost never get in the first. And I've heard some people that work there that shouldn't. Okay. Anyway, so I'm not talking about Googles. Those are a different beast, all right? In the Amazons. Okay. So we're going to wear a suit and wear a tie every time. White shirt, nice tie. And I don't like jackets because they don't make sense to me, because sometimes it's really hot and I can't stand suits, okay? But you have to wear one in an interview. You do. Even if you go to a company that's really small and they're all wearing shorts and Hawaiian shirts, wear a suit on your interview. So if you overdress and you feel overdressed and everyone else is in their flip-flops, you can say, I don't like suits, but it's an interview. I got to. Okay, you're going to cut your hair. You're going to get a nice haircut. You're going to trim your fingernails. I heard sometimes they look at your fingernails, which is ridiculous, I know, but you're going to be nice, neat, clean, and you're also going to go into an interview and be energetic. You're going to have a lot of energy. You're going to drink some coffee or something before you go in. You're going to have you're going to be happy, you're going to be uplifted, and you're going to have energy. Let me tell you a story. So I worked for this company once that was a mess. It was a complete mess. And I was stressed out because I went to this company and I was totally stressed and we didn't have enough people. People were quitting. And we were hiring this guy and I could hear him. I could hear him behind me, this new hire. And they were interviewing him. And he had lots of energy. He sounded very positive. He was saying, yeah, I can do that. I can do that. And it gave me this, oh my God, I'm so glad he's here. I hope they hire him. I so hope they hire him. It made me feel good I was an employer at that time. I was involved in the employment process. And I heard a guy that had a good attitude and he had lots of energy, and it was a relief to me. I'm like, oh, please hire that guy. It taught me something. It taught me that the guy with a good attitude, or the girl that's got a lot of energy, that's willing to learn, they'll forgive a lot of things if you're willing to learn. So go in there with energy. Smile, happy energy. I can do anything. Nothing's going to bother me. I will get along. They want to make sure you're going to get along, right? And you're not going to be a sourpuss, a Debbie Downer. You don't want to be that, okay? Especially in an interview. So be happy, be clean, be nice. Cut your hair. I always cut my hair before I go in, nice and neat. You might even wear glasses. I don't know. I hate to be I'm not manipulative. I'm not telling you to do that. But it might make you look smarter, okay? Think about things like that. Let's see. Always be positive. Okay, so anytime you're in an interview and they'll always ask you something you don't know. It's going to happen. You have to put a good spin on it. Always. So anytime they ask you something, try to draw on your experience. Anytime they say, what do you think about this? Well, if you haven't done that, maybe you've done something similar. Bring something else similar that you've done and try to twist it in and start talking about how you solved the problem. Say, well, I haven't worked with that technology. Do you know Agile? So for the longest time, I never worked in an Agile environment. I've worked near it. I've done similar things, but it wasn't officially Agile. But I would never say that I've done Agile because I hadn't, right? I do not lie. I say, so have you ever done Agile? Because that's what we do here. I say, I haven't done official Agile, but I worked in environments that were very Agile. We turned things around day by day. So I know what Agile is, and I took it and I told the truth. I've worked in an Agile environment, but it wasn't officially Agile. We didn't do the step by step we didn't do it by the book. But I was able to take I didn't say, no, I've never done Agile. Really? Have you ever done Agile? No, I didn't do that. I said, I haven't done official Agile, but a lot of the stuff I've done in the past is very Agile. We turned things around day by day. We had discussions. We sat together. We did pair coding. We did code reviews on the fly. We turned things around on a daily basis. It was Agile, but it wasn't by the book. You understand what I'm saying? I don't want to keep beating that up, but... All right, so you're going to be positive. Anything you don't know, they're going to ask you things you don't know. Always have an answer. I would like to learn that. Do you know so-and-so? Do you know Angular? You know what? I really want to learn Angular. I do, because you're hearing what they want you to know. That means it's important. That means that it's a good skill to have. You should want to learn it. And I'm not telling you to lie right now. I'm saying, do you know Angular? No, but I really want to learn it because I'm hearing how important it is. I can learn very fast. I would like to learn it. I hope you have training. So you say something like that, and you mean it too. You gotta want to learn, okay? I'm not telling you to lie. I'm telling you to be sincere. And don't just say, no, I don't know Angular. Really? Come on, man. You want to learn it, right? All right. Okay, so open-ended questions. So they'll always ask you, where do you see yourself in 5 years? That's kind of a stupid question also. I have an answer for it. I know right away. I do not want to be in management. I do not want to be a manager. I do not want to handle people, as in I don't want to have to make them I don't want to be a mean to them. I don't want to have to make them work. I don't want to have to make sure they show up on time. I don't want to do any of that. I just want to build. I want to program. Have your answers ready. Know where you want to go. Just say, for the next 3 or 4 years, I just want to learn programming. I want to be better than I was before I came in here. So your answer, be ready, is what I'm saying. Be ready to talk. Be ready to think, Okay, here's another thing you need to know. In an interview, it's usually it can be kind of tense, right? But it doesn't have to be. You don't want it to be like that. If it's tense and you're nervous and you're like, yes, I worked there, yeah, I don't know that one. Don't be like that. Just relax. These are just people, You may know more than them. They may not know anything more than you. You got to have a lot of confidence. You got to remember, if you're smart, you can learn anything. And you might be able to learn you might know more than them. They might be less, you have no idea who they are or how good they are, right? I've interviewed people that were better than me. I've been interviewed by people that were less than me. I've had every kind of situation. So you don't know anything about them. So don't think that you have to be there and you have to be something you're not. Do you know what I mean? So my point is to lighten the mood. Take the mood up and relax, okay? Sometimes I'll make a joke like, man, I wish I had some water. I didn't know I'd be talking so much. And people will laugh. They like that because it brings them down too. It makes, and sometimes I'll make a joke like, I always make a joke in an interview, and I really mean it too. I'm not trying to be manipulative. I really mean it because I love coffee. I have to have coffee. So I always make a joke. You do have coffee here. So they say something like, is there anything else you want from us? I say, well, I really hope you have free coffee. I really hope. And that's kind of funny too, So make a joke like, man, this place is a maze. I can't find anything around here. Keep it uplifting. All right. There's a lot of things I shouldn't even have to tell you. Don't ever talk bad about your last company. I mean, do I really need to tell you that? You don't ever want to talk bad because they're sitting there thinking, oh my God, it's one of those guys. Don't be like, man, my last job, I hated it. The stupid manager. Um, and they'll always ask you also, why did you leave your last company? Now, the real answer might be, my manager was a jerk and I couldn't stand working there. I didn't feel like I could succeed. But that's a bad answer. Of course it is. You have to have a reason for leaving your last job. And it needs to be a good reason. And it needs to be real too, because you got to believe everything you say has to be real. So you have to find the reality. A real reason why you left was probably because it was too far of a drive. You know, I have kids. It's way too far for me. I was getting home too late. I had daycare. They wouldn't, I don't know if you want to say they wouldn't let me out earlier, but you might say something like, it was too far. The technology was wrong for me at the time. I really wanted to program and they did. You can change the discussion and make it into a positive. I want to learn and I didn't feel like they wanted me to learn. So, something like that. Don't use what I just said. I'm just saying you need to they're going to ask you, why are you leaving your last company? You have to be prepared with a good, solid answer that's not, my boss was horrible. Because probably they're thinking, no, you're horrible, right? So you want better career. Don't ever, by the way, I shouldn't have to tell you this either. Don't ever talk about money. Ever. You do not discuss money in an interview. Never, never, never. Or time off. They've already got those policies and plans in place. And you will talk about them with your contracting company, but do not talk about money at all. Do not talk about time off. It is not open for discussion. Always at the end, thank you for your time. Their time is valuable. Everybody's time is valuable. So you want to thank them for their time. They will appreciate that you say, I know we were here a long time. I know you're busy. Thank you. I appreciate your time. That's something I really do appreciate their time. I always say, I appreciate your time. Because whether it's good or bad or not, it doesn't matter. Have a good attitude and walk out of there. It's fine. Now, I will say, you have to be ready for some surprises also. I interviewed about a year ago for this place, and I went through the interview. Everything was great. The guy was nice. They liked me. I liked the place. They said, oh, by the way, here's a test for you. It takes about 45 minutes. I hope you do well. A test. I had to take a test. And I started going through it, and I'm like, this is a reading comprehension test. It was a hard test. And I started looking at the answers, like there are yes and no. There are right and wrong answers. I'm like, if I do bad on this test, I will ruin the whole interview. I actually was so upset because I got surprised by the test. A test in an interview I didn't even know about. I left. I got halfway through it and I'm like, why am I doing this? I wasn't doing well on the test. I wasn't ready for it. I hadn't prepared for it. So I got halfway through and I'm like, I'm not doing well on this. This can only hurt me. I'm not prepared for this. This wasn't fair, and I quit. I walked out the door. I said, I didn't even want to work there because now what ended up happening was they really liked me and they wanted me to retake the test. And I didn't do it though because I ended up thinking, the test had nothing to do with the job. It was a reading comprehension test. I will take a technical test every single time. I will do well on a technical test I will, but I will not take a test that's irrelevant. The thing after that too was they had a psychological test after that, and they called me on the phone and they asked me psychological questions. And it was a real psychological test. It just threw me off. I'm like, I've never had this before in my life. It gave me a creepy feeling about the company. I'm like, I decided I don't want anything to do with them. Anyway, be ready for some surprises. Find your limits. If you're not willing to take psychological tests, if you're not willing to take reading comprehend weird stuff. Okay, so a lot of times, like right now, I'm getting dry because I'm talking a lot. So bring some water to you on your interview. It's okay to have water. If they ask you for water, get some and drink it because you get real dry sometimes when you're talking and talking and talking. If you can, talk a lot like I'm doing right now. Go through your skills. Go on your resume. You have to know your resume very well. I've heard some people don't know their resume because they lied on it, and they'll ask about the resume and they'll have to look through it and read it. That's ridiculous. I do not need my resume. I never look at my resume. I give it to them and they ask me about it. they ask me about it, and I know it front and back because I worked at the places. I never lie, and I say, oh yeah, at that place I did this and this and this, and I can describe everything on my resume because I didn't lie about it. So don't lie on your resume, and know your resume, because they will ask you. They'll go through your resume, and sometimes they'll find gap. They want to know why was there a gap sometimes in here, like why did you leave this company? It looks like you were only there for 3 months. What happened? Well, a lot of times it's a contract, and that's the nature of contracting. But okay, some weird stuff. Brush your teeth before you go. You want to have good breath. I know it sounds crazy. All right, show up early every single time. Every single time I go to an interview, I get there, and it's harder to find than you think. It's harder to park where you think. You do not want to be late for an interview. Never be late, ever, for an interview. That is like a huge red flag. Late for an interview? Really? That's terrible. So you show up with your suit and your hair and your fingernails, and you cannot be late. Show up 10 minutes early. What that means is if you've never been there before, you get there 40 minutes or 30 or 40 minutes early, and you find the place. And then usually what I do is I get there 30 or 40 minutes early, and then I find a place and I go to the bathroom. That way I know where it is, and I don't have to get there immediately and have to go to the bath. Like, as soon as you get there, like, hi, it's nice to meet you. Can I go to the bathroom? You don't want to be like that, okay? All right. All right. Be relaxed when you're in the interview. Tell yourself this job, whether good or not, you may not want to work there anyway. Also, sometimes you might think, oh my God, I'm not doing very good in this interview. They're asking me all these questions, I'm getting them wrong. Sometimes, and this is very important, and I just learned this, sometimes they're just trying to figure out where is the edge of your knowledge? Like, my God, this guy knows everything. He never gets a question wrong. But eventually, they want you to get a question wrong because they think, man, this guy's awesome. Even though you're getting, they may already have hired you, right? You got this question right, this question right, this question right, and they're like, man, this guy's awesome. Let's just keep asking him questions. Uh-oh, I'm getting them wrong. I'm getting them wrong. I'm getting them wrong. I'm doing terrible. When actually, you've already been hired, right? Think about that. So even if you're getting questions wrong, that doesn't mean you're doing bad. You may have already done well, but you don't know it, right? So just do your best. Here's another thing. Any chance you get to interview, even if you don't want the job, do it. Go interview. I learned this from some other guy. He's like, he'll interview anywhere. He'll just go. He'll like, I'll interview. He doesn't care because even if you don't get the job, who cares? Because you've got experience. Every time when I don't interview for a long time, and I set up like 2 or 3 and I'm ready to get another job, the first one I don't do very well. But the second one, I start to get my speeches ready. I start to remember things I'm going to say. By the third one, I get really good because I've said it 2 or 3 times, and I start to remember all the things I've done, and I get my speeches ready, and I say the same things because I'm talking about my experience. So go on the interview, whether it's good or bad. Like, don't be just like, I don't really want to work there anyway, so just cancel the interview. Go anyway and get the experience, okay? Even if you don't think you want it, or you might not ever get it, go on the interview. All right, that's a bunch of tips. I've got more, but I don't have them right now, so I hope you enjoyed that. Please hit the like button. I'm going to keep doing these kinds of things. These are the soft skills. Programming is not just about programming. It's not just... it takes a lot of skill to be a highly paid programmer. It's not just programming. It's also having a good attitude, being nice all the time, being able to work with other people, not getting mad or angry, showing up in a bad mood. You have to have those skills that carry you day to day to day to day. Because not only do they need you to do the programming, they also need you to work in a team and be nice. Because nobody wants to work with a jerk, right? You gotta be nice. Even if you're... See, a lot of us programmers, we're introverted, right? I know I am. I'm not a big extrovert. I don't like to go out and talk to meet people or anything. I actually don't like to talk to people. I do, but I like to talk to people I know very well, right? I don't like to meet strangers. I'm not, because I don't know what to say to them. But that doesn't work in an office environment. So you got to put on your happy face. You know, I hate to say it like that, but you got to be willing to work with people. You got, even if you don't feel like it, you know, you got to be always ready to help, ready to help, ready to help, because that's what they like. Today, especially in an agile environment, it's more social than ever. The days of the little guy working in the little room by himself in a little cubicle, those are gone. Like it or not, they're gone. You've got to be congenial. You've got to be happy. You've got to work with people. You can't do the job by yourself, because there's so many different pockets of people that know things in a company, especially when you just start. You're not going to know anything when you start. Everything is going to have to be from someone else. So you have to create alliances and friends, and you have to be nice to people, and they will be nice back. And especially if you get these good relationships, they'll be willing to help you. So those are the soft skills that people don't realize go into the job. It's not just about programming. It's also about being, and that can even make up for lack of skill too. If you've got great soft skills and you're weak in programming, you can get better at programming as long as you're not also bad in your soft skills. You'll still keep the job, right? Anyway, I hope this helped. I'm done right now, but I probably could talk about this for another hour once I come up with some more ideas, but good luck.